Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is the lovely Kasia. She's a transformative coach, therapist, and the visionary founder of Balance Psychotherapy. So, this is my very brief introduction to you, Kasia. But as I mentioned before, and a lot of my guests are familiar with, the main question that I love asking my guests is, who are you in your own words in this very moment?
Hi, everyone. Well, I don't want to sound too crazy if I'm going to say that I feel on the inside like I'm a light. It's a very, I understand that it might be a very strange thing to say. On the outside, in professional capacity, I'm a psychotherapist. I used to be a school teacher, so in education before. And now I feel if I was going to go on the inside, the part that I feel I want to I want to identify with, because it's also partly my decision to identify with that part inside of me. And that part I chose to identify with is light. And I love living my life being identified and attached to that part.
Wow. So a lot of people feel it's a concept that's very abstract when some people say, I'm love, I'm light, I am God's energy, I'm the universe. So how do you bring this feeling, this, of you as light into this physical world? Or, I would say this reality that seems very much to be physical.
Excellent question. Body, through our body. And that's the only way. I always feel that the gateway to spirituality is through our body. So it's fantastic to have to work with our mind. It's a great gift to be able to process things and think. But somehow, if we have it in a second row, and the first row is our body, if we are imagining sitting in a theater and watching the life happening inside of us and on the outside, in the first row, our body needs to sit. The question is how to work with it and how to use the body as a gateway to our inner self and to our spirituality. And techniques like EFT or psychoanalytic object relations help enormously with that, because we can imagine our internal world like it would be a cosmos, right?
Yeah.
Where we are in the center of our solar system and we are the sun. And then we spread the sunshine onto the planets, Milky Ways, thousands of moons, stars, and all those objects on the inside, all those parts of your solar system, they can symbolize for us an emotion or a thought or a memory or an image. And it's okay to be to be the sun with the warmth and with the life-giving energy, to give a space to that planet and say, oh wow, I can feel fear in my body, or I can feel sadness or grief or shame or joy or gratitude. And we can just bring those objects and hold them without criticism, without shaming, just in a kindness, warmth, with nourishment. And this way we're balancing each other, balancing inside, on the inside. We can do that for our children, for our partners, for people on the outside, that we can, when they or when we bring on the inside, when we feel that object that brings us pain, we do have the capacity to bring ourselves to the sun and shine the compassion and kindness onto that object. The problem is, what shuts the gate for people is that when they feel very uncomfortable object on the inside, the most uncomfortable are guilt, shame, fear, or perhaps I feel that, oh God, if I go on the inside, I'll just feel crazy, or I'll be so flooded, I won't be able to do anything with it. So to be able to do it slowly, very gently, to be able to do it with compassion, gentleness, and kindness, to know that you can bring the nurturing capacity to that object on the inside.
Right.
And this way you can balance. And this way, and that's, by the way, that's the best place to make any decisions in life,
Right.
when we have a balanced state of in our body and mind. Whether we want to make an exciting decision or negative, something that we want to get out of, the best way is to be in a balanced state of mind. And then when we are in balanced state of mind, when we have those objects on the inside, and we are identified with the sunshine on the inside or with the sun, we can go deeper and deeper. And that's the place when we can discover who we really are, and then who we want to what we are really drawn to on the inside, what quality we want to identify with fully, because it's also it's partly us, but partly our choice. There is never any force in it. There is such a gentleness on the inside. So coming to the question how I got there, exactly that way. So partly through my training, I needed to know the object on the inside, partly through my experiences in life, partly through my illness, because I was very ill with bacterial meningitis, so it's traumatic brain injury. But I needed to constantly help myself with my mental health, to balance myself, and with how my body functioned, how my brain didn't work for me. So those techniques work not only for mental health, because we like to separate mental health with the body, right? This is the mental health, and that's our tummy ache.
Yes, right.
So we don't do that in Balance Psychotherapy. We feel we are one, and whatever is there, we need to attend to it and investigate and balance it. So those techniques will help with pain management, or with identifying how is healing is an art, right? So we need to feel what is really painful there, what's working with our body to access healing, but not only emotionally on the inside, getting to who you are, but also through connectedness to other people, because that inner center might lead us to connect with others, to access the right medical help. So it could be a right person approaching you. You might be approaching a right doctor who will be able to see through your illness and being able to adjust what's happening in your brain or in your body. And by that, when you're functioning very well, you have balanced the body, you balance the emotions, you balance the pain. You can actually be yourself. And you can live fully with joy, with your mission, with purpose. So it's not an abstract way of thinking, I feel light or I feel love. It's about accessing it on the inside and being connected to something bigger. To, like, for example, you light on the inside of you, Valeria.
Yes.
we talked about being so connected in terms of Valeria approaching me years ago to come on the podcast, and that somehow brought me into the mission, into what I'm doing now. I was working one-to-one with clients at that time, and now I work with groups and work online and work through an app. And that's because Valeria's light brought me into the space. So your light somehow brought my light into that space. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for being open. Yeah. To that which you call light. And that's interesting because in Vedanta, they say the same thing. Yeah, it's that we are light, but it's a different way of describing that, but it's exactly it.
Language is different.
The interesting thing about the work I do spiritually is that in the end, they say once you're there, really identified with that which you call light, in my language would be pure consciousness, God, then it's you feel everything actually more intensively. The happiness of others, the fear of others is just so, I mean, it's, you just blend with everything. It's as if it was you, but the truth is, it is you. So everything is a reflection of you. Nothing, everything is God. So that's really Vedanta, which for some reason I gravitate towards that kind of understanding of life. It's just my heart opens, and I say, that's it. If I can train the body mind to see everything as God, then that's it. Then that's the mission is over.
Train or perhaps allow it to be.
Yeah, yeah.
So kind of to avoid that effort in it.
The training.
The training. I sometimes work with clients who, especially people who are overachieving, very successful professional, and we tend to be in our mind a lot because we are planning
Yes.
and producing something, when actually for us, through a present moment, it's much better to start to connect with our body and with a present moment. And very simple techniques to connect with present moments, just very, very simple. Walking, when you're walking, and even when you're sitting now in front of your computer or laptop, just for finding a little beautiful object or something beautiful. I'm sitting now in my log cabin and I can see a part of the wood that I really like, and I can
Mm.
when I focus on that for a few seconds, my body is starting to relax. Partly this is my neurobiology, and partly it is because I'm bringing my body into the present moment.
Yeah.
So my brain is no more chaotic. I'm bringing this brain and this body into the present moment, and our present moment is our home, and our body is our home. That's our safety. So when people dissociate or run from their body, and they don't like their body, or they abandon feeling their body, they actually abandon their home. And then it's very easy to be pulled into all sorts of illusions, that I'll be happy if I have that, or I'll be happy if I do this, or I'll be
Yeah.
happy if I'm going to be that person. We are constantly chasing something on the outside because we're uncomfortable here. When we mentioned before recording that having those two pillars, spirituality and being psychologically minded, is really important for us to be settled with our body. And doing it with kindness and gentleness, because this body, our bodies, have got some survival mechanisms. Our brain
Yes.
needed to survive in our ancestors, so we can feel that fear when we experience hurricane. We can feel that fear in other people, yes, because our because we co-regulate with our brain, co-regulate with other brains. I can feel the fear that someone else is feeling. We are in it together. We can co-regulate. So this is a beauty of connection, beauty of being with other people, and not being perfectionist about not programming ourselves, not having expectations that, oh wow, if I'm doing spirituality or if I'm person at this level, I need to be very put together. I can't feel those
Yeah.
emotions. I would suggest to go the other way, to say I can feel everything and I can handle everything, and whatever the world is throwing at me, just okay, I can take it on my chest.
Right.
Because that resilience on the inside, your home is big, and whatever comes there, whatever guest comes in there, like Rumi says, they are welcome. We are not saying, oh, well, if we feel that emotion, just shutting the door and say, oh, come on, get out, get out. We're just saying, okay, if you are a guest and you do want to sit down and have a cup of tea, you're welcome. And you know what you want to say? Is there anything you want to say to me? Just, having that cup of tea, having that time for you to just be with yourself for a while, that's the great start. To be with your body, to stop dissociating and starting to recover the body, because in that body is joy. That's the only way how we can purely feel joy. Joy and happiness are different, or joy and excitement is a very different things. We search for excitements. There is excitement here, excitement there, and we mislead that excitement with joy. When actually joy is our permanent state of being, it's always there. But it's up to us whether we want to access it. And we can access it only through our body. There is no way that thought processes can produce joy. We can imagine
Right.
ourselves doing something, but this is excitement. This is living in a future that doesn't. It's like reading a novel and being excited because of the characters that our brain is producing. But that's not going to bring us long-term joy. Long-term joy is about fighting for our body to get there, despite the fact that we live in a world that can disrupt functioning of our body. Whether it's we as women can suffer with enormous hormonal
Oh, yeah.
disruptions,
Yeah.
all sort of things can disrupt our body and functioning of our body. So to protect the body, so it can feel, it can be nourished, it can be balanced, so we can feel joy as long as we can.
Yes. I love that message. I mean, that's one that was one of the first insights when I opened up to deeper healing and to go on the spiritual path that I am on now. It was, yeah, that was the name Fit for Joy came from that insight. You're already fit for joy. So it just told me something. It was just so clear to me, the message that I was already, well, so all of us are already, we are what we are looking for, really. How interesting, right? We just miss it. And it's one thing that we miss is our own selves, which is that light that you spoke of.
And because we are very often, there is a first step when we are trying to access our the internal working of our body. There is very often the initial tension. That very often the first step is scary,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's every day. It comes from the tension that is built in our body, that there are different, we can catch affect from other people, we are in very uncomfortable situations very often, so we're kind of, like we're carrying that heavy backpack, and of course it's quite difficult to, when we are after holidays, to unpack the backpack, right, and do the washing. So that's
Yes.
what that's what it's the start when we are actually starting to be with our body every day. That's the first step. The first few minutes, it's quite difficult. So sometimes for our just neurobiology, some people like to go for a walk or do yoga. They prefer to do it in movement, and that's totally fine, because our neuroceptivity likes movement.
Right.
So there is a reason why yoga is an introduction to meditation. So whichever movement works for you to settle your body is totally fine. Totally fine. It's just to recover the body and to feel the joy in the end.
Yes. I clearly see that the mind is a meditation, is a training, yoga is a training. So yoga is just a perfect, well, it's a
Yes.
perfect training, isn't it? Like all includes everything. It encompasses everything. It's not leaving anything behind. So it's the body, mind, and spirit. But they don't really mention the spirit. It's almost like once you have the body, mind in alignment, then the spirit will show up. That light will just shine.
So I'm guessing what you're saying is the first steps is to train, because we need to
Mm,
have some sort of framework for what we need to do, and we are learning from someone else how to do it, right? So
mm,
we're learning, we're training, and then at some point the training needs to drop. We need to soften. It's like,
right.
this is exactly in the conversation I had with someone who is a musician, that at some point you're training so hard for years, and then at some point, to be able to release and play and be the joy and be the music, you just need to drop that training and just start to practice gentleness. So perhaps that's a next
Beautiful.
step, right?
Yeah,
I feel that this is something that comes in every tradition, that there is first the training, but at some point we need to release it and allow ourselves to just be, and trust that the training just click in and it's in the right place.
right. Yeah, that's it. And that we are talking exactly about that, your work, and that has to do with training. But I love that training the mind, the body. But I love how you're already bringing the goal, right, which is the allowing. So once the body, mind, they are trained, then allowing or allowance, or this flow. I like the word flow too. It just happens, right, Kasia? It just, yeah, then you don't have to do anything anymore. I mean, the body, mind, kind of, they don't have to work so hard anymore.
And look, we just started with training, right? When we started the podcast, when I was trying to explain how the internal objects work or parts, that was
Yeah,
training, right? So before I said allowing, first know how it works, that there are those parts. So we have got certain structure how to approach it, and
right.
then just allow the guests to be there with compassion, with gentleness, no criticism, no shaming. So that's training.
Right.
But also it is training, right? It's a framework.
Oh, even the allowing is training itself
It's a
in a way.
framework, yes.
Ah, interesting. Yes. Some people use acceptance. I think that you have even in
Ah,
therapy, right? You have acceptance therapy. I'm not sure what you call it, but there's an approach
yes,
that
there
has to do a
is.
lot, right, with the acceptance.
In balance psychotherapy, I prefer the word allowing,
Mm,
because, for example, when I work with trauma or with something that is difficult to accept, or we shouldn't accept it in a way,
yeah,
there are parts on the inside that are there and they are belong to us, but many of them are just introjected or internalized. Internalized, it's that's a term when we are saying that when we are children we're learning something and it's we are cooperating with it. It's somehow it's coming in and we're fine with it that it's coming in. Like, for example, a gaze of loving gaze of a parent comes onto the inside, is internalized, and we feel loved, right? But
right,
something that is introjected, for example, trauma, when someone is abused, or if there is no loving gaze, but there is a gaze that is hateful, for example, that also will be on the inside as an
mm,
object, and
mm,
that object will be repeating that sort of gaze, violent gaze, or a gaze that is hateful. So I wouldn't say that I need to accept that gaze. I actually need to just allow it. If I have on the inside that hateful gaze, I allow it. I invite it in with compassion and with kindness. I don't fight it. I don't criticize it. I don't judge it. I don't make excuses, and I don't create a narrative about it. I don't bring myself into a state of anger that, oh God, I never had any caregiver who gave me that gaze of love. I would say that is the gaze I have on the inside. That's the part, and I allow it to be. And then I would say, what would you like? What would you like, that part? Because you're suffering terribly. What would you like? Is there anything you need? And that hateful gaze might say, I just need to be accepted.
Right.
And as the adult, as the son, I can say, I give you all the acceptance in the world. I allow it to be. I can give you a cup of tea. Just sit on my sofa and do whatever you want. And that's the compassion and kindness applied to that. So I don't judge it. We do not have any power over what's on the inside. Any power. They came, most of the internal objects are there. They are not, they are there. They coming from family structure, from social structures. Some people live in very abusive social structures, educational structures, religious structures that might be abusive. Regime. When I was a child, I actually was born into a communistic regime, so I know how it feels to actually, when the violence in the structure, the wider structure, can penetrate family, or can bring even a fear or any other objects into the family life, and one will internalize all of that. There are millions of internalized objects. So if we want to kind of spend our whole life building a story and narrative around each of them, they will be just hypotheses. But the most important and the most healing part is treat them with kindness, treat them with gentleness. And at some point, our brain, through our neuroplasticity, is going to heal. Whatever is there that feels uncomfortable, if we give a compassion and kindness to it, gentleness, we treat it with a cup of tea and allow it to sit on the sofa as long as they want to relax, they will heal. Or at least they will be smaller and smaller, that they're not going to make decisions for us in our life. They are not going to keep us kind of like shrinked and not being able to live our life to the fullest. And that's what we do in Balance Psychotherapy. So it's very different to building narratives or to have a structure that we're following in psychotherapy. We're very integrative. We are trying to heal. And we're trying to, through balancing, we can balance that in meditation, but we can also balance through being with other people. We can co-regulate with other people. We're running now women's groups, and women can really balance together when there is a clear guide. So if I'm acting as a guide, that I'm quite structured and model how to do these things, how to balance, then we can all do that for each other. And then we're not afraid to use any external help to balance ourselves as well. So we are not sort of therapists who are so purist that will say, oh, if there is something really difficult with our neurobiology, then we'll just be healing through meditation. No. We are, I remember someone saying beautifully, and he's a theologian and he's a psychotherapist and a medical doctor. And he said, what's on the inside, what's on the outside. If I can bring certain emotional states on the inside purely through my body, why I can't do it using medication, for example, for a while, to balance ourselves. So we like to work with other medical professionals to not to numb our body. That's a very difficult and very, very important way, not to numb, but to balance that low part that is simply too big and we can't get it under control. Like, for example, a massive fear that goes into paranoia. That we need to shrink that object, we need to shrink that planet so the other planets can flourish
Yeah.
and we can be balanced.
Wow.
So,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Wow. What's not to love about that? Yes. So why does it happen, Kasia? There's some of these parts, they get so strong and so pronounced, and they run our lives. Is that because we have been identifying with that specific part for a long time?
If it's very strong, if it's very strong, our neurobiology is very affected. So naturally, our neurobiology runs certain course. It's a bit like being in a forest, and if all people walk one path, then obviously
Yeah,
the
you
path
have a
is the
path.
most visible. So
Yeah.
then, whatever happens in my life, I'll feel fear if that's the path that I'm naturally keeping exactly. Or some people might whatever it's happening, they will feel anger. Even if they say sad or grieving, they will straight jump into anger, and they literally don't feel sadness. So
Mm.
it's about because then if they replace sadness and they actually react with anger, they're not reading their body. Because if I'm losing someone or if I'm losing something important, like for example respect in my relationship, and I run into anger every single day. Well, one is fine, it's conflict is normal, but if it happens every time, then I don't feel the other emotions that are there underneath, because I
Mm.
have tendency to feel anger all the time. So that's what's happening. So we over identify, and then the more we over identify, the more body is programmed to do it. So it's like a vicious circle. So we need a
Yes.
little bit of help to get ourselves out on the outside of that vicious circle and say to ourselves, but you have got the whole solar system on the
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
There is so
Yes.
much to do, and we really can feel joy and freedom and just enjoy life as it is.
Yes, I love that part of it too. It's what people call the possibilities, right? Being able to see more, being able to experience more with the body mind. Yes, that's beautiful though. I see that every time I'm able to see more in the sense of it feels almost like a dream-like reality a lot of times when I'm very relaxed because all these images they start to appear. It feels like imagination mixed with dream-like reality. I do yoga nidra. I don't know if you know.
I do love Yoga
Oh
Nidra,
yeah.
and especially the balancing part, working with opposites. Here it is.
Ah,
Because you can use
right.
Yoga Nidra to opposite one affect and one thought with the other.
Right. Yeah. That it's beautiful work though. That's I've been doing that recently.
And that's what helps you really to go deeper, right? Because there is a space for
Yes.
doing the opposites, to balance it, so then one can actually relax. And when we relax, a different part of the body takes different
Mm.
part of the brain takes over. So our overused and jumping with stress
Yeah.
amygdala and hippocampus, they are actually starting to self-regulate, and we're starting to use different part of the brain, and our thought processes are changing. We are seeing the world differently,
Yes. Yes. That's it.
and we can access those beautiful values, right? Like love, light, because
Mm.
they are not something that sits on the inside only. They are kind of like everywhere, right? Like if you somehow through the channel how you are brought me out onto the
Yeah.
surface. That's what's happening between us. We brought the sparkle between each other and between and with other people, because this is something that once you know where it is in the body, you connecting through that path with other people, with dogs, with cats, with everything
Yeah.
what's in the world. We're starting to feel not alone. We are not just one person who trying to practice being compassionate, and in the world is just terribly dark. That's projection. No, there is so much light and beauty on the outside, and we can connect with
Yeah.
it, and we can be safe in that. And that's the kind of the interconnectedness that we can connect in the affect with other people, because things like joy, love, hope, they don't have boundaries.
Oh, right. No.
It's not something, it's not an emotion. Emotion and affect are different things. Emotions is produced by a body, but affect is something that we share. It's almost similar to perhaps energy. I don't do energy work, but something I would call it more. I like to call affect a lively vibration that
Ah,
vibrates in between us, almost like music.
yes. I love that. Yes.
And then one doesn't feel alone.
Mm,
So you're connecting with right people, you're starting to create communities of people who really have your back, who you feel supported by. And then that is very healing, because people who experience trauma, they naturally afraid of others. And
mm,
it's very difficult to co-regulate with others. But if you have got a community of people who have your back, who vibrate on the same kind of level, that's very healing. That is much stronger than any individual therapy on this earth,
mm.
because it's almost like swimming in a aquarium with other fish, and the water is amazingly warm and
Ah,
beautiful. So we are soaking, right, in something
yeah.
really good, and it's really healing our body and mind.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I love to hear
Mm.
that. What a beautiful metaphor. Yes, I love the water. And yeah, it has been my case with so much trauma, and I couldn't really regulate my emotions around people. I was afraid of people for so long. And I needed to find a way. And finally, it's interesting how it seems like life is very supportive of itself, because it was my desire, my quest to connect deeply with others. And then that just happened. Of course, like you said, it's not really easy in the beginning, because you have to see, there's so much you have to see, have the courage to see, but then and accept. And then, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then I felt almost like it's a choiceless choice to just connect meaningfully with people like yourself. And it has been so healing, I have to tell you. Very, very healing for the body, mind. Yes.
Oh, it's beautiful to hear that,
Yeah.
because that's exactly our mission, to create the women's group. And I'm personally choosing participants. So I am hoping that when I'm choosing a group, that it has got the healing potential, that people will vibrate.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's really like, wow. Because naturally when we experience trauma, we are afraid of others, but then we are afraid of others, we are not co-regulating, we are withdrawing, and we're actually getting worse. We are
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So it's about connecting to safe people, connecting to safe pets. Dogs are incredibly good for co-regulation. I have got a
Yeah,
dog. I
they
know you
are.
have got a dog.
Yes, gosh, yeah,
Mm.
they are. And there's a lot of times some people will say, I don't know, you've probably heard, there's a, this sounds like a joke, but somebody said, there was a monk that he was about to lose the body, to leave the body. And then one of his students asked him, like, where are you going after you die? And then the monk said, I'm going to hell. And then the boy was shocked. Why would you go to hell? You're the most amazing, beautiful person I have met. You know, you have been this amazing teacher for all your life about love, kindness, and all these beautiful things. And he said, this is exactly the reason why I'm going to hell, because that's where they need me the most. I don't know. A
Oh.
lot of times there might be some truth about, light workers, people who come to this reality. They come here equipped with so much wisdom like you have. And I have to
And you?
say, in an unbiased way, that I have too, not that I chose to. But so why do, and I always question that, why some people are so loving, so kind naturally, and some people are not? And then you see them pairing, like husband and wife, friends. I see the contrast, the opposites. Like, this is interesting. Why are they together? They don't match really. Like a lot of beautiful people who come to this reality we see here, they don't really align with this reality here of competition, violence, fear, and all that.
Someone said that all the difficulties in the world are just to be as they are, so alive and love can release itself.
Right.
And perhaps through all of us will at some point, but in some of us earlier and in some of us later, trauma is a great place to release light. So
Right.
it's, again, I know it's a very, for some people who are listening to us, it might be a very painful thing to hear what I just said, because they might feel lots of anger. Why did it happen to me? This is the worst thing in the world, and it should have never happened to you. And that's true. The suffering should have never happened. The abuse should have never happened. The violence should have never happened. But my experience as trauma therapist and through my own trauma, that the more if you allow to stay for a while with that trauma, at some point, if you just allow yourself to be there, alive, and love will come through.
Mm.
Because my experience is where there is more trauma, there is more light, no matter what. And some people, especially in certain communities, they would feel that they somehow perhaps shamed by society, or they feel like they are the worst people in the world, or they did really bad things, or they did things that communities see as something bad. So when the shame is the block, but
Mm.
once they work through that trauma, no matter how bad you were, and no matter how bad things, what you did to others, there is the trauma, and through that trauma, light come through. Because no matter whether we're good or bad, we don't have to deserve that. We don't deserve the light coming through. The more poor and the more difficult our circumstances are, the more the more the light come through. This is the
Mm.
story I work with people all the time. I'm not making it up. There is more light in people who went through suffering.
Mm.
So very
That's
often,
true.
as people say, a deep love and deep suffering opens us into something like that. So if people are going through terrible illnesses, that's a space when we can be open into to that light. And this is because we experience that the body is not functioning anymore, and we feel like we have to fall deeper, and we have to fall deeper to function. Some people have to function using their spirituality because their body doesn't function anymore, and they have got certain task in life to accomplish. So they literally live life from the deeper part. I think it's called, probably in your tradition, the subtle body. They work from that space because the body is too painful. The physical body is too painful, or the physical body is too ill. So there is that space that one can fall into. And even if the body cannot heal, or sometimes body won't heal because it's already that stage, there is another side, there is another level that one can fall into. And that's, I think, people naturally experience non-duality there, because it's
Yes.
just then the pain kind of is not important anymore. There is something bigger and something warmer and lighter, and just there is such an ease and gentleness in that space, that all those little trivial things that we worry about don't really matter anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. A billion times. Yes. To that truth again. Right. The body seems to be holding so much. That's why this work, the somatic work, right, of release is very, very important. So we are not, the body's not really getting in the way. And maybe that's why with the language of Vedanta, training is very important.
Mm.
like your language allowing too. So all these pieces, they come together. It's really beautiful to see the work of life itself supporting its own beingness and doingness. It's just, it's all one really doing everything. Like, I have to say, if we are able to see the divine everywhere, acknowledge ourselves as divine and everything else as divine, gosh, this reality would be completely different. It would be so much more fun in a way, right?
And I love that. And I really want people to understand that this is not that far and that they
Right.
don't even have to meditate to experience that. It's enough to wake up and to feel our breath,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
we were born with the breath, and that's our first word when we're gasping for air, and that's going to be our last word on this earth. And that breath is somehow mystical. We can't buy
Mm.
it, we can't give it to ourselves. It's life just lives us. It's really, we feel that we are in control of so many things, but we are actually not in control. We can't even control our thoughts. So being just with our breath is enough to be a mystic. I remember, I think Richard Rohr said at some point he met I think a Jewish scholar
Mm.
who said that Yahweh in the scripture is actually pronounced only with vowels, which means a name of God, and they pronounce it as a breath.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I don't think we have to make that much effort as we think, because this is our first world and it's going to be the last one. And we don't have really much influence on how we're breathing. I mean, we can have
Mm.
techniques, but we can stop it and start again on the next day. And just being connected to that breath sometimes is enough. Just
Yes.
staying with ourselves and just allowing ourselves to be, and just with focusing, asking ourselves, how am I really now? When we're breathing, just asking, how am I really now? How am I really today? And just all the clutter, take it away, put it on an imaginary table, and go. Don't be afraid of going into that murky zone, that kind of stickiness, or
Yes.
tough stiffness or something,
Uh,
and being with
mm.
that space for a while, because that's the space that it's very often not allowing us to go deeper. And I promise to people that if they practice that every day, just asking themselves in their breath, how am I really today? And just examining that place that they don't want to go into, that they will open. And I think I have got on the Balance Psych app and a very short course to train people in using focusing, exactly what I've just said, to ask themselves, how am I ready today? It's a free program and it's a beautiful thing. I start this with every single therapy session. So when a
Oh.
client comes and sits down, I say, how are you really now? And
Yes.
then all
Yeah.
the clutter, which is okay, so that's the clutter, let's put it away. But how are you really today? And that's where we can go deeper.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so yes, people can download Balance Psych for psychotherapy on from the App Store and Google Play, and just practice that. It's a really good start. Literally, I never have a therapy session when I don't start with that question, because
Yes.
then
Yeah.
I allow people to go deeper.
That's what we need. Yeah. Thank you so much for your generosity, Kasia. That's beautiful. I know you're offering not just that, you have a free course called Path too. That's also free. I see here. So, I mean, you're just doing so beautiful. You're doing beautiful work. Inspired. I mean, it's so easy to say, right? Like you said, we have no control. We think we do, right? Of things that we are doing this and that, but when we just allow ourselves to really see, truly see who is doing it, it is a divine part in us. So the divine that we are, So thank you for being open to it.
And thank you for bringing me here.
Thank you. So we're almost at the end. I want to mention you just mentioned the app. So your website is balance-psychotherapy.org. And then the app, as you mentioned, I will have the link of the app here too. So both links will be on the podcast notes, balance-psychotherapy.org, and then the app balance-psychotherapy.passion.io. I'll have both of them there. Did I miss anything else, Kasia, here about your work?
No. I hope people will keep connecting
Yes.
and keep connecting and do it slowly. There is no hurry. Do it slowly, gently and
Yeah.
slowly, teeny tiny bits, day by day. It doesn't have to be done very quickly. We don't have to be stressed about it. It's something to have it as a joy and a journey, or joyful journey.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. I love that too. So thank you so much too for allowing this conversation to be. I know I made a lot of notes here and you sent me an outline, but everything goes out of the window a lot of times because I'm like, gosh, I have all these things. They're all from the intellect, right? For thinking. But then of course it's important. We are not saying that thinking is not important. It has its place in our reality, obviously. But for some reason, I love intuition. So I'm always being guided by my intuitive thinking and feelings. But when it comes to writing everything down and then trying to follow the script, I have a hard time. So thank you so much for being open and flowing with this conversation.
And it's probably better to flow because that's how life can happen, right? Instead of us planning
Yes.
something. When we allow ourselves to flow, then we hopefully will produce something today together that will be useful to your listeners.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's trust life that it worked through us.
Right. Yeah. That's, see, that kind of trust is very important. Yes. 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 Thank you so much again for your beautiful presence in our reality and for saying yes to this conversation, to this meeting. And we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch again. Bye for now, Kasia.
Thanks so much. Bye bye.